Hello, friends. Chris Corsi here, president of Thrive Today, and I want to welcome you to the Relational Skills in Real Life podcast. I'm glad you're here. Today's focus is on a skill that doesn't often get a lot of attention. This is what we call skill 3 of the 19 skills: form bonds for two. You know what? Form bonds for two really is the foundation for all the other 19 skills, because this is the skills where everything starts. Everything starts with our bond with one other people. So it's me and you. This is the primary bond, often between a mother and her child. This is where all the good stuff grows. This is where the skill training begins. This is the testing ground for our relational skills. So everything begins with this seed. So what it means is it's me and you, and together we grow joy. Together we learn to rest in quiet. This is a skill that really is a big part of what we call tracks 1, 2, and 3 in our Thrive trainings, our 5-day trainings. This is what happens when you bring one person with you, a spouse, a prayer partner, a good friend. You bring one other person and work your way through tracks 1 through and 3. And this is often a little more intense training. Things move quickly when it's just me and you. Whereas we work on our three-way bonds, what we call family bonds, in our true identity track. This is where you work within groups of me and two other people. And the nice thing about what we call family bonds is it's a little bit slower, feels a little safer, and we can do a lot of remedial work as we work through the three-way bonds. But you know what? A lot of people eventually want to get to that point where they can practice with one other person, and you feel it. You feel the difference when you're practicing joy with one person versus a group of people. It feels a lot differently. And this can be good, or this can feel a little bit threatening. But you know what? What happens here at Bonds for Two is our needs are met in satisfying ways. So what that means is this is where we develop sturdy attachments. Strong attachments happen here. Healthy attachments happen here as we learn to bond with one other person. Needs are met with consistency and predictability. And this means that what happens is infants learn that there's a response around the corner whenever they have a need. They're hungry, they're cold, they want some joy and connection. Needs are signals for connection. And so here's where we build those secure attachments by meeting needs in predictable, consistent ways. And we spend time noticing, listening, and watching. And every mother can relate to this, just listening and watching for the sound of that baby crying so that you can meet that need. And so needs are these signals that says, hey, something is needed here. It's a fire alarm that alerts us when there's smoke. And in this case, it's a good smoke because it's when baby has a need. And that need should be met with not only good timing, but with care and connection and consistency. And so infants bond with the abilities that they have at any given point in their life. Often starts out with smell and touch, and then the taste of food, right? Those are all sources of joy. Good things happen. So I bond with the person who smells familiar, right? Newborns know their mother's scent within just hours of being born. So smell is a powerful force. Babies say, I know that smell. That smell is personal, and that smell is familiar, right? The taste of food, the person who comforts me and touches and cuddles and snuggles with me, and as well as eventually the voice tone and the faces will begin to come online. Faces come online after about 2 to 3 months. So babies start to see clearly, and they start amplifying joy. And so parents see when this happens and they go, wow, there's something really happening here. A lot of joy is growing. And so for two-way bonds, play is actually one of the ways that relational skills are downloaded to the infant by the mother and eventually the father. So the mother-infant play actually promotes a lot of brain development during the first 2 years of life. There's a growth spurt for the right hemisphere, the two years of life. And so play is actually one of the ways that bonds grow. And so play is an expression of an attachment regulatory dynamic, which just means play is one of the places and one of the ways where good things grow. And so the attachment is not just the reestablishment of joy when there's a rupture. Attachment is securely established as mother plays with her baby. She uses her face She uses her voice. She uses her interaction. She uses the sounds, singing sounds. Actually, it's called motherese. Is one of the ways that babies play with the parent. And so, what play does is it allows a baby and infant and mom to build some joy, to amplify positive emotions like joy. And then play calms and soothes the infants as well. And it helps infants begin to learn how to regulate the positive and negative arousal. How do we manage what we feel? So we go from high energy joy to low energy rest. And from low energy rest, we go back to high energy joy. And Alan Shore from UCLA says that at about 10 months, 90% of maternal, physical, and verbal behavior consists of affection and play and caregiving. So 90% of that, those needs being met, consists of a lot of affection by mommy, lots of play, and lots of care. And by 1 year of life, Short says, stimulation seeking exploratory play, that's a mouthful, but stimulation seeking exploratory play, it increases to as much as 6 hours of the child's day. So what that means is for 6 hours a day, baby wants and pursues the need for play and connection. And so this, a lot of research tells us that an infant's need for affectionate touch is crucial for the right brain, right hemisphere development. So touch is a very important part of this whole equation. So that means lots of soothing touch, lots of comforting, lots of calming, lots of snuggling, all kinds of good stuff here. So what's happening for the developing mind is a lot of good things are growing for baby. And what happens is two-way bonds really set the tone for three-way bonds. And so by 2 years of life, safely by 2.5 years of life, it starts at 2 years of life, baby starts wanting to interact with this third face that's kind of been in the background up to this point. So this is where the father comes into the play dynamic, and the father starts building some joy. We'll talk about three-way bonds at another time. But how well that transition goes from two-way bonds to three-way bonds really depends on the health and the security and the stability of that two-way bond attachment between baby and mom. And I've heard Jim Wilder say that security with father at 2 years of life will establish security for a lifetime. So what that means is building joy and having needs met now with that third phase, after just building joy with mommy, building joy now with daddy, will internalize security. And if that security is there, baby will have that security throughout her life. Basically, your brain, when it learns security, it doesn't need to go toward disorganized or insecure states of mind. So that security establishes a lifeline for baby. And so this pattern is created that really sets the tone. Security with mom and baby sets the tone for three-way bonds. And so skill training often begins later in life. So let's say that the two-way bonds structure wasn't formed well. This is where remedial training later in life can happen with a trusted resource to start the engagement. And this is often a spouse, a close friend, and a prayer partner. So this is when people bring a partner to thrive, and they start doing exercises in our tracks 1, 2, and 3. This is actually remedial care for that two-way bond skill when it hasn't been fully formed or developed in a good way or a healthy way up to this point. And so we start learning these skills and we start growing some joy and security with one other mind first when we haven't learned these foundational skills. And this is often where a therapist or a counselor or even a pastor can play an important role. A coach, a teacher can play an important role. It's basically I'm bonding with someone safe. And that starts to lay down the framework for the person to eventually start forming healthy family bonds. So it's usually safety with one other person sets the tone. And I can remember my friend Deborah, who had a very difficult childhood. And Deborah worked on developing security for the first time in her life with a therapist. And this therapist was someone safe, where she grew and developed security with this therapist over time. And what this therapist did was really provided the capacity to learn these skills and to develop these skills. So it was one other person first for Deborah. And as that started to happen, and then there was a third phase, there was a group bond, we would call it, but a third phase entered in the picture, and that third phase was me. So I started helping Deborah and growing joy with Deborah along with her therapist. And then she started to increase her capacity in new ways. But it took one other mind first before she developed a group bond. And that's where a lot of healing happens. That's where a lot of joy is grown. That's where a lot of rest can take place. That lays the foundation. That security sets the stage for the third phase. So remedial work to rebuild trust and develop a foundation of joy can grow over time, but it starts often with the same-sex mentoring relationship. So this is where young men have that coach or that teacher or that counselor to mentor that friend, maybe it's family friend, grandfather, someone to mentor and disciple that young man. And same for young ladies. Ladies have often a mother figure or like a grandmother figure, someone that mentors and guides her. And that is actually creating a two-way bond that sets the stage for more joy to grow with the three-way bond. And so, two-way bonds are where people feel safe, seen, heard, and understood. Those are people often at parent and elder stage maturity that have some life to give to young people, and they become a mentor or a coach in some meaningful way. And as I think about this, I think of Mike Tyson. He had getting in a lot of trouble as a young man, as a teenager. He was constantly in a lot of trouble, a lot of crime, a lot of fights. And he had one of his detention center counselors by the name of Bobby Stewart, took Mike Tyson under his wing. And Bobby Stewart recognized that Mike Tyson had all these amazing skills and gifts to be a fighter. So he saw something in Mike Tyson. He was the one that introduced Mike Tyson to Cus D'Amato, who became his coach, that really set the tone for Mike Tyson's successful career. And that Cus D'Amato became a father figure to Mike Tyson. Like he was a father to him. And Mike Tyson didn't have didn't grow up with a father. So Cus D'Amato became that father figure that really poured into Mike and helped Mike to grow and become, the person and then the boxer that he became. So it started with, these father figures for this young Mike Tyson, getting in a lot of trouble, helped him to be able to try to get on a path that was going to be a much different place for him. So two-way bonds, my friends, this is when you bond and you grow security with one other person, and this sets the stage for growing joy within a group and within a community, so to speak. There's a lot more where this came from. And so I want to encourage you to check out my Transforming Fellowship book, talk about these skills, particularly skill 3, bonds for 2. Skill 3 on our website. If you go to our website at thrivetoday.org, you'll find the 19 skills, and you can learn and hear more about skill 3 as well. Great resources, friends. Not only can you build security with that safe person, but you can become that person that also mentors and coaches and guides others so that they can develop healthy attachments, sturdy bonds, and grow the capacity to be the people that God created them to be.